Hello, welcome back to Search with Sean. This is, of course, another Chat with Sean episode, and it's going to be an awesome one, as you can probably see. But first of all, just a quick reminder, I'm doing quite a lot at the moment, so I'm trying to remind myself, but I've recently had a couple of awesome guests on as well. So Jess Schultz, it's obviously awesome, and Ashley Liddell. So yeah, I'll put links to those in the description. You can go and check those ones out after this, of course. So yeah, we go on to it because I've got a lot of topics I want to get through today. So obviously you can see we've got the legend himself, Greg Gifford. And Greg is an experienced local SEO consultant and chief operating officer at SearchLab. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I guess, we'll start off with a quite generic one, but I think there's so much going on in this space. It's kind of had a bit of it's always been around, but I think people are waking up to it more than ever now. But what is the recent sort of local search trends that stand out to you right now, and why?
I mean, obviously, AI is starting to creep in and change search behavior. So there's that whole side of things. But it's specifically in local. I think the most interesting thing lately is how powerful review recency is. So getting reviews more recently than your competitors is a massively weighted signal right now. And I've seen situations where you'll have a business that has a whole crap ton of reviews and another business has like 1/3 the number of reviews, yet they'll outrank them. And sure, it could be other factors like content, but if you're looking and content is pretty much at parity, that review signal is massive within the map pack and will really bump you up. So that's been an interesting thing to see this year for sure.
Yeah. And do you think, like, in the past, that companies have been quite, that, one, they found it very hard to get reviews, but two, like, kind of putting them off a bit because it could be bad reviews and they don't want to kind of encourage those,
Yeah, the most common complaint, because one of the things that most people out there will say is you've got to ask customers for reviews, because the upset people are going to leave a bad review no matter what. The happy people, you just don't really think about leaving a review when you've had a good experience. That's just not kind of the way that our brain is wired. So you want to ask every customer, because if someone is happy and then you ask them to leave a review, then they want to share that joy. But business owners are always like, oh, if I ask everybody for a review, I'm going to get more bad reviews. And that's not really true. You're going to get the bad review no matter what. What's going to happen is you're going to get significantly more good reviews if you ask. So that's why it's important.
Yeah, and if you're going to get loads of bad reviews, if that is actually your real concern, then perhaps you just need to do better at what you're doing.
Look at yourself and think about what is it that you're doing that you're so sure you're going to get a bunch of bad reviews, and maybe fix that,
Yeah. And I guess one thing that stood out to me was just like the consistency side of it. Like, obviously, it's always been a good practice to have consistency across your local listings, websites, places that publish your details.
Yep.
And now it's playing quite a big part. It could be quite misleading and throw people off, throw AI models off if you have something saying completely different to your website or what.
Yeah. And the whole like consistency of name, address, phone number thing has been really important in the past, and Google's kind of backed off over it the last probably 2 or 3 years at least, where Google has realized, well, look, it really doesn't matter if you've got your name, address, phone number on 100 or 200 or 500 sites. Like, there's no real differentiator there. What really matters is for the sites that humans might see, are you consistent there? And so it really has become this foundational signal that doesn't really matter. You don't have to work a lot with. But now, because the AI models all really use those directory type sites as inputs for their synthesized answers, citations are back into the limelight, and it's important to really pay attention to being on all the other sites now. So everything's coming full circle. Stuff that didn't matter before matters again. Things that matter don't matter as much. Black hat stuff that we all used 20 years ago is now back in vogue for LLM stuff. So, it's just all a big cycle. We'll just keep reliving. It's like we're stuck in Groundhog Day. You're just the same stuff over and over,
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? Fashion comes around, and music. But yeah, I think one example I saw was I think I've probably used it so much on the channel before, but when someone was trying to push their service center and optimize for it, but they weren't being showed up in the large language models. And when they did deeper research, they found that quite a high authority publisher had it that this particular service center was closed about 2014 or something, but they're still picking that up as a piece of information.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess with that going forward, like with the rise of AI search and large language models, especially on the local search sort of, mindset, how should this change people's, processes and strategies going forward, if at all?
That remains to be seen, honestly. Local hasn't really been affected by LLM search as much as everything outside of local has, because the models just haven't figured out how to do local yet. And the hallucinations are extremely bad in local, because you get a hallucination in ChatGPT when you're just asking a question. Okay, not a big deal. You get a hallucination when you're asking about a restaurant to go to dinner for, and you go to that location and that restaurant's been closed for 5 years and the LLM doesn't know it, or even worse, it doesn't even exist, then that causes a lot of frustration and mistrust. And so also just looking at overall studies that have been done, most of the traffic that is being lost to AI mode or ChatGPT is the informational, very early funnel stage content. But the transactional stuff, you don't really get AI overviews on, and people don't tend to use ChatGPT for that. Local is inherently further down the funnel. You're looking locally because you want to go buy face to face from that location, or have a service guy come to your location. So AI hasn't really affected things as much yet, but it's clearly coming. So should you do anything different aside from paying a little bit more attention to citations than you used to? There's really nothing to change at this point, unless you want to go try all the really spammy, hacky, black hatty BS that works, but then that tanks you in Google. Like the white on white text works like a charm for the LLMs, but tanks you in Google because it's clearly manipulation. So right now it's kind of the wild, wild west. A lot of people are trying to figure this stuff out. A lot of things are working that clearly are not going to be working in 6 months to a year, but they work right now. We're kind of suggesting and taking the track that, look, let's pay attention to all of this and see what the research says, see what our testing does. But right now, there's not really a whole lot different you need to do.
What do you make of like some of the things they've introduced? And then they've introduced it, I think they have in the US, but where they can call local merchants for you to get pricing and stuff.
And that all has come out really recently. It's kind of been in testing where you could periodically see it here and there, but like as of this week, it's showing up for, so far, I think we've identified something like 20 to 25 different types of queries that it's showing up for. And we're actually running a bunch of tests right now because there have already been people that have written about it, but they're like, look, here's what it is. You click the button, you get a bunch of things to fill out, and then you get a list of prices. I'm more interested in what is the experience that the business has when the AI platform calls them. What are the questions that are being asked? What does it say initially? Because in every test that I've read so far and everybody that I've talked to that's tested it, you get 10 prices back. You get 10 different locations that get called, and you get 10 prices back, assuming that the location answers the phone and gives that information, which A, you're going to have people that just don't answer the phone because they're busy. B, it probably pretty obviously AI. I don't know if it says, hey, this is Google's AI. But if I was a business owner and I got a call that started with, hey, I'm Google's AI, click, I'm hanging up. Like, I don't care. That's why we want to see, what does it sound like on the business side, so that then we can give the right advice to businesses and marketers of, here's how to prep your clients for this new thing that will be coming if it's not already there for you. And for sure, it's already there in North America for everything that it exists for now. And I'm sure they're going to continue to broaden the scope and add more and more different topics into that Ask AI for prices. Now, overall, what do I think about it? I mean, I think for some things it's great. Like Sterling Sky just did a write-up about testing it with a hair salon. and they just wanted to know prices and availability for a certain day. Okay, well, then that's valuable. If you're looking for a hair salon because you don't already have a hair salon that you go to, then sure, super valuable. But also in my mind, I know that most people don't look for new salons all the time. As soon as you find your person, you just keep going back to that person. So is that button really necessary? I don't know. For plumbing, okay, definitely cool because, you'll pick up the phone, you call the plumber. Hey, my toilet's broken and it's leaking. Can you get here in the next hour or two? And they say no. All right, cool. I'm going to hang up. I'm going to call the next guy because I don't want this to continue to flood my flat or my house or whatever. So having it call 10 people all at once and give you an answer 10 minutes later, you're not going to physically, as a human, be able to call 10 places in 10 minutes. So in that case, super valuable. It's showing up for a lot of automotive stuff like oil change and tire shop. And you're probably just going to go to the dealership to get stuff done, or you're going to have your own service place that's your neighborhood mechanic that you always go to. So I don't know that you're really going to just go, well, I need an oil change. Let me just have AI call and find the cheapest price. And all the prices are effectively the same anyway. So I think in some cases they're adding it in where the Google engineers think it makes sense, but they're not thinking about the real world usage. And I doubt that real world usage is going to need that in some of these situations, but other ones, I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's what, when you were saying, I was thinking about when I've had to call up local garages and the kind of people that answer the phone. I don't think you're going to be wanting to speak to an AI.
Yeah, and then the AI, too. And like when you click the button, it's not like you just click the button and it goes and calls. You click the button and it does this multimodal pop-up, and it's like 8 different screens of questions that you have to go through. So you're already spending a minute or two just filling out all the stuff to give the AI the information it needs to go make these calls. And it's very clunky. It's not like if I was in a situation where I needed to do it and I click through, by the time I'm clicking onto the third screen and it's asking me more questions, as a user, I'm probably frustrated at that point because I have no idea how many more questions it's going to ask, and I'm going to bail. But you're right. The business owner probably is going to hang up when it's AI. And especially if it's asking 4 or 5 questions, you may answer the first one, but you're not going to sit there for 5 minutes and talk to a machine to answer questions about pricing unless you realize what's going on. And that's why we want to do this research to see what the business side of it is, to get it out there, to let people know, hey, this is out now in the United States. And if you're in any of these businesses that we've identified where this is pulling up, you really need to know about this. And yeah, it's going to suck, but this could get you business, and not answering means you're for sure not getting that lead. So that's why I really want to, we're basically right now, I'm trying to identify every possible search phrase that pulls it up. And there's some ways to do it based on the questions that it's asking you once you click into it. But then we want to see where we have a client that would show. And the other thing I want to see is, if we know it's calling 10 businesses, how is it selecting the 10 businesses it's going to call? Is it just calling the first 10 businesses that show in the map pack? Or is it randomly picking its own things that it wants to pick? Who knows? So that's also going to be part of our test to identify, does the order of businesses that gets called match up to the order of businesses as far as how they rank? Or is it some other factor in there? Because then the more data we can get on this, the more we can let people know that, look, you may rank not in the top 3 in the map pack for your search query, but you'll still get phone calls, which in that case would be really beneficial. Because in the past, who are the first 3 people a human's going to call? You're going to call the first 3 people in the map pack. Well, now the AI is going to call 10 people concurrently. So you could be position number 10. You don't even show in the top 3. But if you've got better pricing and availability today, you're the one that's going to get that lead. So it's incredibly important to answer the stupid AI when it calls you.
I think when I've had to recently look at car, garages for certain reasons, and I don't know why I'm picking on there. It's just like kind of what I've had to recently, but they're usually their Google business profiles are usually very basic at best, if not outdated or just incorrect, or they don't have a website, or their website is really bad. So, I think this is another reason why, if you do have those as clients, that education,
Oh, yeah.
continued education is so key. It'd be interesting. I'd be really interested to see if you get that data, because I'm just intrigued to see like people's reactions and the businesses, and actually if people adopt it, people actually use it. I think like the tool that they have about the price comparison stuff, you know, picking it, maybe perhaps buying it for you when it drops to the point that you're happy with, that
Right.
could be a really good thing. I think people
yeah.
will use that, but I'm not sure about this one.
I can see situations where it would make sense. I also see some of the situations where it's displayed that I'm kind of wondering, why would you even put this here? But clearly they have their reasons, and it could just be, they're not rolling it out worldwide. It's only in the US right now. So it could just be a massive, massive test to say, let's roll this out across the US because they've already been testing it in markets. Now let's just roll it out for these, call it 20 to 25 phrases or concepts that it's going to pull for, and see. Maybe they're testing to see, out of, I don't know that it's 25. We've identified 20 to 25 so far. It could be 50 for all I know, but let's say it's 25. Maybe they're putting the 25 up and they're only going to end up keeping it on 10 of those because the other 15, it just doesn't get clicked. And cool. But also at the same time, if they have the AI agent trained to take the answers to your questions, go make 10 concurrent phone calls, and then send you an email with the summary of everything that it learned, even if the button doesn't get clicked that often for a certain concept, it's not like it costs Google any money to have that button there. So we'll see how it shakes out over time. I'm very interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on any data that comes out, and it'd be interesting. Like all this stuff is really like big meta glasses with built-in like maps and stuff. It's a lot of like cool local aspects to it all, and kind of going back to basics, I guess, to a degree. What are your kind of top tips at the moment for optimizing Google business profiles? Because obviously more important than ever, I guess.
Basically, you just want to fill out everything that you can fill out. Like if there is something that you can enter or data that you can put in there, do it. Don't leave any field untouched, except for the areas served field. That does absolutely nothing, completely ignored by the algorithm. If it is a brick and mortar storefront, it does nothing at all. If it is a service business, like a plumber and electrician that does their work at your location, it still doesn't influence visibility or ranking. All it does is it draws the little line on the map to show people how far you're willing to drive to serve customers. So that field is kind of optional. Honestly, I don't think the line really matters to anyone. Business owners tend to put goofy stuff in there too. Like they'll put the entire country in as their service area, when realistically they can serve, a certain market and that market only. But everything else that you can fill it out. Make sure that you're strategic with your primary category, which is the very first category you choose, because that's the most weighted element that will affect your visibility. Make sure you've got correct hours, make sure correct business name, make sure all your info is correct, is basically the guideline.
Yeah, if you've got any like tips on how to, if you say you got multiple, like where I work at Macmillan, we've got hundreds of locations, so we have centers and stuff. Like keeping that all sort of updated is a challenge, and naming conventions and stuff like that. Is there any sort of like tips on how you kind of tackle that if you have clients?
Yeah, I mean, you just basically have to sit down with the powers that be that have the decision-making capability and just make the call as early as possible what your naming conventions are going to be, how you're going to set these up so that it is consistent for the brand. And then you just have to enforce it. And there's really not any other way around it. There's a lot of platforms out there that will allow you to edit multiple profiles at one time. So that's typically a good idea, to use some sort of an Uberall or a Yext if you've got hundreds of thousands of locations, to just make it easier so you're not having to go to the, we don't have the old dashboard we used to have because it's the in-search editing experience. But if you have multiple businesses on the same account, it still takes you to the page that lists all your businesses. But if you've got hundreds and or thousands of locations, you're scrolling through the list or typing into the search box to find them, and you're still going in and editing that one and then coming back to the list and then going into the next one. So your only real choice is to either just get the API and use the API, or find a tool that uses the API so that you can be in one place and just do things quickly and easily. The thing that people forget is if you really boil Google down to the simplest concept, it's just a pattern detection program, right? Like all it's doing is it's classifying patterns that it finds. So Google will reward better patterns with more visibility. If you're not consistent, like if your hours are one thing on your website and a different thing on your profile, that's not a good pattern. It doesn't match up. It's not the ideal thing that Google rewards. In Google's mind, you could even go so far to say that this is a confusing signal because which is it? What is the source of truth? The Google business profile or the website? Or maybe you've got a third one on Facebook and you have all these different hours out there, or your address is different on a few different directory sites from what your website is or your Google business profile. You want to make everything consistent so you have the right pattern that looks attractive so you're more likely to show up more often.
And how much are elements like images and videos and like the sort of like those other parts of it, like if you have a menu or whatever, do they actually make a big enough impact to really care about, or is it just generally
They're massively impactful, but not for ranking. So photos or videos or your menu, is it really going to affect how you rank or what your visibility is? But they're conversion factors. So people want to understand their expectation of what it's going to be like doing business with that business. So having photos lets people know, all right, this facility is clean. Everybody looks happy. You know, maybe I'm looking for a pub. Hey, this pub looks really cool versus this pub over here. It looks gross and dirty and like they haven't cleaned it since 1983. So photos are much more of a conversion factor, but they're still really impactful. Same thing with videos. Not going to rank better because you put some videos in there, but videos give people more insight into your business and what you do and how you do it and what your facilities are like if you're a brick and mortar. So they're really important. They're just important for reasons other than visibility.
Yeah, and I mean, when I look for, say, a pub, I would go straight to maps most of the time. Like, I'm not going to look through websites and straight looking through. So, and like a lot of the time, pubs aren't proactive in adding their own media there. So you're relying on user generated imagery or videos. And like sometimes they're not the best, they're not showing the best parts of your location. So, you know, you're in
I come to the UK quite often for conferences to speak. And if I want to go find somewhere to eat, I'm not going to go look at a bunch of restaurants' websites. I'm just going to go either do a search for, you know, fish and chips near me, if that's my vibe or whatever. I'm going to do a search and look at the stuff in the map pack because I want to see photos of the food and I want to see customer reviews. I don't need to go to the website to do that. Why? Like same thing. I'm looking for a pub. I want to see photos of the pub. I want to see their prices. I want to see where they're located. I don't need to go to a website for that. So for certain verticals, you don't need the website at all. Like you still need a website because sure, it's possible to rank in the map pack without a website, but why would you want to do that? Why not do everything that you can do to rank? And if you're a pub or a restaurant, you got to have the website so that it's out there, especially now that we've got all of the AI stuff coming out. You need a website for them to refer to, but you don't have to pay as diligent attention to your website as something like a car dealership or a law firm or a doctor would need to pay to the website.
When I've seen ChatGPT, for example, doing local results, I presume they're putting in stuff from Bing or Google to fulfill those results.
Searches to go look at the business profile, and then they're also looking at directory sites and other like kind of aggregate sites, depending on the vertical, to get that sort of information to synthesize an answer.
Yeah, they're quite interesting, some of them results. I don't know what to make of them. Some seem quite good and some seem a bit iffy.
Oh, a bit iffy is putting it nicely. Some of them are pretty garbage.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like some of them was like not totally relevant to the search. Some of them basic, like you ask for more pictures, for example, and they just can't supply it, or they struggle to. So there's something they're going to have to work on. What's the kind of, we touched upon it a bit, but what's the best way to manage and respond to local, well, any reviews, I guess, but obviously on your local listings?
So you could just go look at your review. set up bookmarks in your toolbar and just every morning go click to each review site and see if you've got new reviews and answer the reviews, right? Like it's not that big of a deal for a single location business to do. But it's a heck of a lot easier to get some sort of software platform. And there's a bunch of different reputation management ones. And several of the local SEO tool sets also do it, where you have some sort of centralized place that will just tell you, hey, you've got a new review here. Like we use Places Scout for that. And so we put in all the review profiles for all of our clients. And I don't even have to log into the platform because every morning it will send an email to the consultant that is handling that account to say, hey, you got a new review and here's what it is. And then you can go respond to it, but you don't have to waste your time clicking to a bunch of different sites to see what that is. And then especially if you get into those multi-location type scenarios where you've got tens or 50s or hundreds or even thousands of locations, it'd take you all day to click through a couple of hundred locations by looking at the 5 different links. So set this type of a thing up, and then it's just going to email you, here are the locations that got new reviews since this time yesterday, and it makes your life so much simpler.
Yeah, and the approach is interesting because I've seen certain companies get quite hostile to bad reviews, and it becomes like a whole thread on their, on their listings, and it looks quite nasty, and then it's not a good look. So,
yeah, your review response is really important because people tend to, think about whenever you go buy something on like Amazon or some e-commerce site. If you go look at the reviews, you don't just go read through all the positives. You go look at the negatives. You want to see the things that people complained about. Same thing with reviews of businesses. People are going to gravitate to read the negative reviews because if you see the same topic again and again and again, hey, this business owner treats his customers like crap over and over and over again. That's one of those situations that we talked about earlier. Like, hey, maybe look at your bad reviews and figure out you've got a process or something you need to change internally that's going to help you get better reviews. But people are going to read those bad reviews to see the complaints, but they're also reading to see the responses from the business because everybody understands no business is perfect. Everybody's going to have a bad day. You're going to drop the ball and screw something up, or there's just unhappy people out there that are just bound to leave a bad review no matter what kind of experience they had. Seeing how you as a business respond to bad reviews gives people insight. If you post the exact same cut and paste response to every review, looks like you don't care. If you get into one of these back and forths with somebody that left you a bad review and you're spouting off to them and then they come back and make an edit and then you make an edit and it turns into this long thing, makes you kind of look like an a-hole. And why would anybody want to go there? Businesses and marketers need to realize when you're responding to a bad review, your response isn't really for the person that left the bad review. Your response is for every other potential customer in the future that's going to read those bad reviews that wants to see how you handled the situation.
Yeah. Do you do any sort of like advice on that with your clients? Is that something you work on, or you kind of leave them?
Give them advice because for the vast majority of our clients, we just do the review responses for them. So our team knows how to do it. But yeah, we do have a handful of clients that have their own people that respond to reviews, and we do kind of coach them sometimes when we see a bad response. The worst thing you can do is say something like, we're sorry you had a less than stellar experience. We strive to give every customer amazing service and treat everybody like family. I'm Greg. I'm the manager. Can you please call me at this number and tell me a little bit more about what happened? That's the worst response you can put up. You're better off not putting a response up than that, because for most of the businesses out there, you're going to have that customer's contact information. So when somebody leaves a bad review, you got to realize they're not leaving the bad review to try to hurt your business. They're leaving the bad review because the reality of doing business with you did not match their expectation. And they were disappointed in some fashion. And they want to let you know, hey, look, man, you guys just didn't do the thing I thought you were going to do. And they're also warning other people, hey, like, beware, like you think you're going to get this, but you're actually going to get this in reality. So when you just respond and go, geez, I'm sorry, we tried hard, call me and tell me more. When the public knows you already have that person's contact information, they already told you what happened. Why are you asking them for more details and putting the ball in their court? You should be reaching out to them offline to try to make the situation right. And then your response becomes, hey, Steve, we're so sorry we made a mistake, but we called you immediately. We sent you the gift card to fix it. and we really hope you'll come back and give us another chance. Anybody reading that bad review then goes, oh, okay, either that guy was an a-hole, or you know what, the business screwed up, but they were honest about it. They tried to make it right. And now you want to go do business at that place.
Yeah, 100%. That's perfect. Yeah. And what do you think of this new thing that they're going to bring in, like anonymous reviewing on Google, like good or bad thing? Or
everybody's throwing a big fit about it, and they think it's going to lead to a lot of fake reviews. I disagree, because the review spam detection system is still in place. So you're not going to be able to just, like, I could not right now. I mean, I actually probably could, because I was in London like a month ago, but I was going to say I could not right now go leave a review for a pub in London because I haven't been to London recently, but I have. I was there a month ago, so it probably wouldn't matter. But for example, if I'd never been to England before and I suddenly left a review for a pub in London, that review is not going to stick. Google's going to know, look, this guy's never been there. He's never left the United States. There's no way he could leave a review saying that he'd been there and had a horrible experience. So it doesn't matter whether it's anonymous or not. I actually think it's going to be more beneficial than not, because the people that want to leave an anonymous review are the people that are afraid of repercussions. Like, maybe it's a regular at the bar, at the pub, and they had a crappy experience, but they don't want to go leave a bad review with their name on it because they know they're going to be in there tomorrow night and they don't want to be treated poorly. But now they could leave a bad review and let you know, hey, look, man, I'm a regular. I come in all the time. I love this place. But by the way, this one night when I came in, here's this really bad thing that happened. That's beneficial to the restaurant or the pub to know that. Or I think the other side of it is, like, businesses that traditionally had trouble getting customer reviews. Divorce attorney, great example. You're not going to get a bunch of reviews from people that are like, man, you know, my wife cheated on me, so I went to this attorney and he is just the best bulldog of an attorney ever, and he screwed my wife over so badly and she didn't get squat. Like, you're not going to leave a review that says that, but now you could, because you could leave it anonymously. Or a bankruptcy attorney, another great example. You're not going to be like, yeah, I was a dumbass and ran up $250,000 worth of credit card debt and I only made $50,000 a year. There's no way I was ever going to pay it off. But I went to this bankruptcy attorney and he got all the debt wiped away, and now I've got a fresh path, and now I'm going to be able to blah, 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 blah. Wouldn't do that before. You could do that now. So I think it's beneficial for those verticals where people would struggle to leave a review because you don't want to kind of open yourself up to the knowledge that you use that business. I don't think it's really going to affect more fake reviews, because, I mean, really, if I wanted to go leave an anonymous review for a business right now, it's not that hard to just go spin up another Google account, make up a new Gmail address, spin up an account, verify it, go leave the review with that fake email address. You can do it now anyway. So it's not like you're making it easier for people to cheat. I think it's more beneficial than not.
That's interesting. I can see on the flip side, like, as we've said before, like, it's quite hard to get reviews for any type of website. It's hard to get positive ones coming in, and it involves work, you know, from your side, that you have to go and get those usually. So it could encourage more bad ones coming in compared to the good. Yeah. But like we said, like, if you're running a good establishment or you sell good products, you shouldn't have to worry unless things go wrong everywhere. But you know.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like what we were talking about earlier. The businesses that are worried about asking for reviews because they think they're going to get a lot of bad reviews because they're doing something shady. All right, for those guys, anonymous review is probably not going to be great, because you're probably going to get a few more reviews than you would have before. But that's not because anonymous reviews made it easier. It just made people feel a little bit more comfortable telling you that you suck in a public forum. You know, so that then comes back down to look at yourself and figure out what you need to fix, because there's obviously something that customers don't like.
100%. And I guess in terms of, like, if you were gonna, I'm sure you do this all the time, when you carry out like a local SEO audit, where do you start? Where do you cover? Like, what's the foundations of carrying out like a high quality local based SEO audit?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're really looking at 4 areas. You look at the content on the website and the technical optimization of the website. You look at the inbound links pointed to the site. You look at the Google business profile and how it's optimized. And then you look at reviews and how reviews are responded to. And that's really those 4 areas. You could go look at citations if you want, but right now, if you're doing an audit, you're doing an audit because you're worried about Google visibility. Citations aren't really going to affect that unless you've recently moved and you do need to do a citation audit because you'll have bad information out there. But if you haven't moved and all your information is correct, really it's just those 4 areas you have to worry about.
With the on-page stuff, like the on-website stuff, how much detail, if you had like loads of detail about a certain location versus just a basic location page that has the details like Google has, maybe a couple of images, like does the effort usually pay off, do you see, or do you think it does? And obviously it has the details, doesn't really matter. Or
Depends on which vertical we're talking about. For some verticals, like back to the restaurant and pub example earlier, Weatherspoons is famously kind of crapped on by a lot of Brits for ruining the pub scene, right? But Weatherspoons has a single website that lists all of its locations. If you were to go in and put a lot of effort into putting a bunch more info onto every single one of those individual location pages for each pub, is that effort going to result in any uplift? Most likely not, because people are probably just going to the pub because it's the pub that they and their friends go to, right? You're going to go where your mates go. Or it's the pub that's right on the corner by your office or right on the corner by your house. So it's not like you're going to a website every week to go, where am I going to go to the pub after work today, right? You're already going to have your favorites, so it wouldn't matter. But if I'm looking for a solicitor, you probably do want to have some information on that landing page because I want to have some trust signals to know that I'm calling the right person that's going to be able to help me with my issue. So again, it's back to thinking about the customer journey, what the customers want or what your potential customers want. If it's a business where they just, restaurant, pub, we're going to look at your Google business profile. We don't really care about your site. Don't waste the time putting in a bunch of effort there. Put in more effort in the places that are going to give you positive uplift. But for other businesses, it's incredibly valuable to have all that information.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess it does vary. Sometimes it's not as easy to find on the Google My Business listing. So you want to find out information about accessibility or like what the actual car park is,
right?
Like,
Yeah.
Spaces in the car park and that kind of thing, Yeah. When I was working for a mobile phone company, we did basic location pages for like quite vast amount of UK, and it worked really well as a sort of tactic. And we were out ranking some of the top brands. It was just like a really quick sort of thing, but I know things have moved on now. It's quite a few years ago, but
still,
yeah.
a lot of times you can outpace the bigger brands because the bigger brands are hindered by scale and by corporate red tape. And so if you have the ability to move more quickly than the bigger brands and do things the bigger brands either aren't willing to do or don't have the capacity to do or don't have the knowledge to do, like putting up a bunch of city pages, a lot of times that will be beneficial and you will outrank them because back to the pattern detection side of Google, if you can make your pattern look better than theirs, it doesn't matter that it's a massive brand with a ton of authority if your pattern is more attractive.
Yeah, 100%. This was really interesting when I came across your timeline when I do some like research into stuff about you. You've done a lot of work with the automotive dealers. Funny enough, what we're talking about, and some of the findings you said were like really fascinating. Some of the things you were discussing. What kind of strategies and approaches have been most effective, do you think, and kind of what you found in your looking at them?
Yeah. So for 12 and a half years of my career, I worked at places that only did SEO for car dealers. So even now today, where I work with any type of business at our agency, we still have mostly car dealership clients because I've been a pretty visible SEO knowledge sharer in automotive for 16, 17, 18 years at this point. So people understand who I am and understand that I have a lot of knowledge that I try to share. So we get a lot of car dealers. We do other stuff too, but yeah, with car dealers, it's really clear how different things work between different verticals. Because a lot of people mistakenly think that Google treats every business the same, and it doesn't. Different verticals are treated differently. And you see things like, we just did a big study of car dealerships. We did a big study of personal injury attorneys and a big study of cannabis dispensaries. And like the average number of reviews for a personal injury attorney is like 350 or something like that. The average number of reviews for a car dealership in the US is 2,930 something. So car dealers get significantly more reviews. It's also interesting seeing how people go to optimize the site, because in all three verticals, from just a technical optimization standpoint, the H1 headings on the homepage were always very well optimized, including the important keyword phrase and the location modifier. But then the title tags typically were not very optimized. Like you go from like 90% plus of everyone is optimized for the keyword phrase and city to like 10% are optimized for the keyword phrase and 10% are optimized for the city when you're looking at the title tag or the meta description or things like that. So it's this weird situation of you start examining things at a large scale and you see certain best practices that are followed to the letter and other ones that are kind of followed or not followed at all. And it doesn't make sense why some businesses are so diligent about following every SEO best practice for 35 to 40% of the things that they're doing. And then another 30 to 40% they kind of loosely follow. And then 20% they just don't pay attention to it at all. And it's not like it's difficult to do that extra 20%. They just ignore it for some reason. So it's very clearly a mixed bag in level of expertise. But for sure, the thing that we've seen across the board is, we did this study and it was mostly centered on GDP stuff, although we did look at some website factors. And we're getting industry averages, but then we can also compare the people that rank number 1 in the map pack to the people that rank number 10. And pretty consistently across the board, this wasn't trying to assign weight to say like, oh, the category selection is the most important thing, or hours, or business name. It was just saying the best practice that everyone says is this. Do we see more of this or a better version of this for the position 1 guys than we do at position 10? And across the board, we did. So all of those SEO best practices for local SEO that people talk about, we saw correlation in the results that the guys at number 1 were doing it better or doing more of it than the guys at number 10. So I guess the most shocking thing was just basic SEO knowledge that has been out there for years and hasn't really changed, still is being ignored by a lot of businesses.
Yeah. It's kind of what I say with the garages around here. Like they're not even doing the fundamentals right. Like,
yes,
the Google business listings aren't like the basic information isn't there, or they're damn well website.
You were talking a minute ago about the location pages, and you asked if it was important to add additional information to those location pages. Another really important basic SEO concept is that if you want to show up for whatever search phrase, you need a page of content about that topic on your site. And for car dealerships, you've got the car sales side of things, and then you've got the service and parts side of things. So like I bought this BMW and I'm going to need to get an oil change, and I'm going to need to get, every however many thousand miles they want you to come in to do your maintenance package A. And then you have to come back later for maintenance package B and all of that different stuff. Well, if your dealership wants to show up for those terms, you need a page of content on your website about those terms. And most dealerships only think about the sales side of things, and they inherently will have a different page for every vehicle that they sell, because all of the automotive platforms take your inventory feed and split it out into various pages on the site. But so many dealerships are lacking that service content. They'll just have one page that says, hey, we have a service department, we can handle all your service needs. And they'll have another page that says, click here and fill out the information to schedule an appointment. But they don't have a separate page about oil changes. They don't have a separate page about batteries. They don't have a separate page about tires. And I think that's a concept that's really important and is very basic. So it's not like we're not getting technical and going, well, make sure that your title tag, your meta description, your H1, your alt text, and your page text, and your URL string are all optimized around the same keyword and geo modifier. Like businesses are going to go, what the hell did you just say? I don't know what that means. But if you're like, look, man, at a basic level, if you want to show up for a concept, you need an individual page about that concept on your site. Anybody can understand that. And a lot of people have said that for years, but we still find a bunch of businesses that aren't doing that.
Yeah. No, I'm not surprised. And yeah, when you was talking, I was thinking about when we had Christian J. Ward on from Yext, and you were saying about the studies they've done recently around, like, when you analyze local listings just by location, like, it can vary so much in terms of the ranking factor, like the different sort of factors, that it might just be that your competitor isn't who you think your competitor is anyway.
Most businesses will say, oh, my biggest competitor is this guy. But that's your vibe of offline. I see this as my biggest competitor in my market. But you look online and you look at customer data, and that guy's very rarely the biggest competitor.
Yeah, 100%. And he was just saying, like, could be the fact that they just have a few more reviews than you. So at least you know now what you need to do to try and compete a bit more with whoever that is, it's a good piece of research, like, especially broke it down by industries and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess we touched on it a bit with the AI stuff, but what do you see being the biggest sort of digital marketing trends going on or predictions for 2026? It could be local, it could be just generally. What do you think is going to happen?
Especially clearly AI is the direction that everything is going, but it is still in its infancy. And there are a lot of the kind of hustle bro people on LinkedIn, the gurus, people trying to make geo be the new term that we call it, which is the dumbest thing ever. People trying to sell tools that track your visibility and LLM results, which is scientifically impossible. People selling geo as a service or AIO or whatever they want to call it, telling you they're going to be able to get you to show up in AI search results when there's no real reliable way to even tell that it's happening. Sure, directionally, you can tell that you're having some influence, but everyone's going to ask the AI a different variation of the question. You can't reliably say at this point that you can make that happen. Now, sure, we've done some testing and there are some things that I am very sure work, but do they work consistently? No. Are you going to get exactly the same results for every client you try to soar? No. Versus if I do PPC or SEO, I am confident that the activities we perform will give positive uplift to the client. And from an SEO standpoint, there is enough overlap in the things that matter that you just do the same stuff you've been doing if you've been doing good SEO all along. If you've been doing hacky shortcut SEO, then yeah, you're probably going to need to adjust what you're doing. But for us, and from my perspective, I think it's too early to say, here are the things that you need to do differently for AI. Better to say today, according to testing, it's 50% of the time or more, you could probably see results from doing this thing for now until the AI model changes. That should be the way that people sell this, but that's not how they sell it. I think we're going to continue to see AI getting pushed on us. I think at this point, I think it's silly to think that ChatGPT is the winner. Very clearly, Google is the one that's going to lose this game. Like, it is Google's game to win or lose. If Google does not come out on top in the AI search war, Google screwed up royally because they have the built-in user base. ChatGPT just had this red alert, all hands on deck. Let's worry about the core product and not additional things because we're getting our ass kicked, because from August through November, the Gemini user base grew at 5 times the rate of the ChatGPT user base because people are realizing you can do the same thing in Google, and Gemini is so much faster and better than ChatGPT. Why would you keep using ChatGPT? So I think we're still going to see a lot of flux over the next year, but from a local SEO standpoint, I don't think local is going to change that much. We might see some more of these have AI check prices button, but I don't think we're going to get full on AI map packs. We're going to have it just replace the organic stuff. And even if it did, AI is not going to remap the world. So the way the platforms work just is not feasible. And there's too much out there. So they're going to have to refer back to Bing Maps, Google Maps, or Apple Maps for location-based data. And you're not going to get in your car and have an AI give you directions. You're going to get in your car and pull up directions off of one of those 3 mapping systems. Most likely, let's be honest, it's not going to be Bing Maps. It's going to be Google Maps or Apple Maps. So your location data is going to be an absolute cornerstone to everything that you do in the future. So I think a location data management platform to be sure that your maps data is correct in all of the different pieces of the ecosystem will be absolutely vital moving forward for any local business, to be sure that if you are surfaced in an AI result, the right information is surfaced and customers are able to find you.
Yeah, we didn't really discuss much about Apple Maps. If Apple are looking to do some things around AI search themselves, it'd be interesting to see how they surface those sort of results going forward. And if, you know, I know there's debate about this, but if AI mode did become the default and was like the main part of the browser, how they would showcase the local results in different, you know, queries that are put in, and conversations would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they can improve on ChatGPT's version of it. Yeah. But no, it's interesting. Have you got any sort of big projects working on in the new year? Or any talks?
We'll be running a bunch of tests moving forward, both for traditional like Google-based stuff and for AI stuff. I think testing is what you just got to do. Like you can't just blindly trust that any of this stuff is going to work, because things are changing so rapidly right now. You just have to be testing it. So we're running a crap ton of tests. And then like everybody else, we're just trying to find ways that we can work more efficiently using AI. So not using AI as a replacement for search, but using an AI as an assistant for team members to shorten I did a podcast thing yesterday, and we were talking about how what used to take hours and hours and hours of keyword research to come down with your kind of seed list of important keyword phrases, you could probably do it in 20 or 30 minutes now, because you could just pull all the data from your various keyword research tools and then drop that into your own LLM and say, give me the information, because they're so good at pattern detection. And that's going to shorten your timeline a lot. Okay, great. You're more efficient. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to drastically improve the efficiency of our team. So we're going to be looking at that really hard this year. I think the biggest, most exciting project is we are kind of in acquisition mode now. Our owner has no desire to exit. And so we just want to grow this thing, and we want to start acquiring other agencies and growing that way. And so that's kind of an exciting thing for us to pretty likely the beginning of the year, we're going to be buying our first other company. And then we get to do all of the fun things there of going and digging in through their processes, making them more efficient, growing that thing. So it's going to be a lot of fun next year.
Wow, awesome. Yeah. And will you be in the UK again next year?
Yeah, I'm coming for sure in April for Brighton SEO. I'm sure I will be there in October for Brighton SEO again. I've been to every Brighton SEO, other than when they just didn't have it because of COVID, but I've been to every Brighton SEO twice a year for 11 years now. So that's like, I'm not going to miss that. And then potentially, maybe I got invited to do SMX London this year, but I couldn't do it because I had a conflict. So I may end up getting to come back for that next year. Who knows what else might pop up.
Yes. Well, I'm doing my first ever talk of Brighton SEO this year. So
You're right.
let's see how that goes. I guess we'll wrap it up. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me, Greg. It's so awesome to talk all that through, and always learn from you. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was a really fun conversation.